All right, guys. Welcome back to Wine, Wealth, and Tea Podcast. That's right, Wine, Wealth, and Tea Podcast. I'm glad that you are here with me again for another podcast session and another conversation with amazing people that are everyday people just like you and me having life experiences and that can give us information how to get through those life experiences no matter what they may be. So I want to first thank everybody for being a part of the show and being a part of my journey because I recently was able to have an online magazine come about. So the online magazine is on our landing page, which I'll give you more. That online magazine is interactive. It's amazing. It's so much. And I've been so busy doing it until I don't even know like how this happened, but I'm glad that it did. It's allowing me to give everybody, it's allowing me to be able to give everybody the journeys that they need to be. I'm sorry, getting some text messages and things coming through as we're recording. So I'm sorry. The magazine has allowed me to be able to give you guys other people's stories and the journeys that they're going on as they're building their entrepreneurship all over the country. So I'm just hoping that this journey really, really highlights those people and bring you the products and the services that you need for your life. So I hope you enjoy the Wine, Wealth, and Tea magazine and you like it, you share, you subscribe, everything. For the first 90 days, it's going to just be analytics. So please do make sure you subscribe. It's free, but sign up so that we can get the numbers so we can know what we need to do if we want to present to you guys to be able to have a hard copy in your hand. We have to be able to see the the numbers on what that looks like. Okay, so I want to go ahead and get started today on our conversation, which I think is going to be like crazy important. Okay, so the conversation right now, I want to talk about a city that is like dear to me, seriously dear to me. New York City. New York City is one of the most beautiful places. It is just a place that it sells a dream to people, you know. It has skyline views, brownstones, luxury town rising views, you know, that are getting just crazy, you know, every year. And then the pricing goes up every year with that. But behind that dream of being in New York City, thousands of displaced people are fighting to just stay housed. Okay. And in one of the wealthiest cities in this country, we do know, in the world really, is a rent crisis. Rents are rising, evictions are rising. And for many working New Yorkers, stability feels like it's like fragile, like it's breaking up. Privilege, it's not guaranteed anymore. And it's just like we have to have this conversation. So we're not talking about like real estate trends. We're talking about power. We're talking about protections that people need. We're talking about who gets to stay in New York City and who gets pushed out because displacement doesn't just start on the streets like we all think. It starts with policies and with systems and with silence. And the more that we're silenced, the more that people become displaced. And today we're going to have a conversation that breaks that silence. So I hope that you guys are really, really ready for a great friend of mine that is coming to the Wine, Wealth, and Tea podcast today. I'm going to let him in the waiting room now. Okay, so they're giving him a little heads up. And I think he's in. Let's see. Are you in with us, Brian?
I am here and present.
Listen, thank goodness, yay! We had a lot of, technical difficulties behind the scenes, so, yeah.
These
I'm
things
just glad that
happen.
you were able to get. Yeah, it happens, you know, I'm a newbie and, you know, everybody's doing this on the fly, and that's just what it's all about, so I wanna first tell people a little bit more about you, before I let you tell them about you. So, me and Brian, have been friends now for what, over 20 years? It's been over 20
Exactly.
years. It's been over 20 years. We went to high school together. We went to amazing high school, by the way, where we really, really learned about ourselves, I feel, because I went to a lot of different schools all over the country. And I think when I came to Brooklyn, New York, it allowed me to find my identity. And I'm still finding it, but find it in a way that was comfortable. And you were one of the friends that I developed being there, and our friendship has stayed solid all this time, so I'm so grateful for that.
Absolutely. Great experience. It's been a long road.
It has. It's been a long road, but, with that long road, you have your own journey and your story, so can you tell the Wine, Wealth, and Tea, podcast listeners about who you are?
Well, I'm a fellow New Yorker, a jack of many trades. Right now we're exploring some social service needs. I'm a mental health clinician, substance abuse counselor, senior case manager for the homeless. We do entrepreneurship. We're a jack of many trades. But as Miss Kristen stated, we come from the ground roots of Brooklyn, New York. Luckily, we were, I guess you could say, raised, for lack of better terms, in a cultivating school system, a very small school setting. So it allowed us to kind of harness in on who we are, who it contributed to who we have become, as opposed
Right.
to attending a formerly large school and kind of sort of getting lost in the weeds. So it allowed for a lot of cultivation, which brings us to who we are today. I am a person for the community. That's who Mr. Weathers is.
All right, all right. That's yeah, that's pretty much what it is. So, I'm glad that you were able to come onto the podcast to have this conversation today. So, I want people to understand, what do most New Yorkers get wrong about homelessness? Or, well, first of all, what is the correct term? Because I know that the term homelessness is not something that a lot of people want us to use. So, what is the correct term?
So the term is homelessness. You can be displaced, you can be homeless, or you can be chronically homeless. The difference is displacement, short term. You got evicted or you're in housing court. You're in the process of trying to regain control over your lease or your mortgage or your property. That's just displacement. Homelessness is when you've been
Mhm.
evicted and there's no point of return. You now have to
Okay.
resort to emergency services to gain housing. Chronically homelessness is the person who has frequented the shelter system. Typically, you would state that anybody who's been homeless for 5 years ongoing, like steadily, is considered
Mhm.
chronically homeless. But the term is homelessness because unless you have a stable roof over your head, you are technically homeless. What people get wrong in understanding the definition of homelessness or having a clear understanding of homelessness is you can have an apartment, your name is on a lease, and you're still technically homeless because of
Hmm.
where you are in your housing status. You may have a roof, but you will have a deadline for when you need to be evicted. You're technically homeless because you're applying for emergency services.
I never knew, um, that there were different levels as you've broken it down, so that you're just educating me right now, that there was even a chronically homeless level to this. So, and I think I explained that to you when we were, in
Correct.
emails, that, we're gonna start one way with our conversation, and a lot of times it's gonna go another way because of how
Mhm,
you respond.
mhm.
So, with that, a lot of people, we look at people that are displaced or homeless, and we think they just where they are, but that's not how it starts. Like you said, anything can happen. They can be in a house or an apartment, and finances or something gets in the way, and then they go through the pipeline of evictions and different things, and they can't get the help that they need, and then they are now homeless or displaced.
Correct. Yeah, you don't have to be on the street to be considered homeless, and it doesn't
Yeah,
just
so it's not
start
a character
there.
flaw.
No,
It's not
absolutely
something that's
not.
wrong with the person. Yeah.
No, it's situational. You have a myriad of factors that play into it. You can be homeless because of overcrowding in your apartment, i.e., the typical person who was raised in NYCHA, the development housing, you might find a family of five in a one bedroom. So
Hmm.
now that forces the at least two of the adults or the adults and the child to exit the residence due to overcrowding. You're technically
Right.
homeless because you
You're
have been
technically homeless
pushed
because you
out.
don't have the right, yeah, because now you don't have the comfortable setting
Right.
to live your life.
The sizing of the unit is not accommodable to the sizing of the family. So you're homeless. You can be homeless
Okay.
because of domestic violence. The minute that and domestic violence does not show itself in just the form of a partner. It can be domestic violence from a family member, a brother, a
Mhm.
sister, a mother, an aunt. But the moment that you file a case for domestic violence, they're going to try to issue you an emergency safety transfer out of your residence. You're now going to be homeless.
Wow.
Does that put you in the system? You can be, as many people in New York face the issue of income. The cost of
Mhm.
living is
I was just getting ready to go into that. So the average renter, how close are they to being homeless?
they they're very close. They're paycheck to paycheck. Unless you're making a six-figure salary, it's almost impossible to afford or to avoid homelessness, especially if you have a child.
And this is, we're talking when we say six figure, we're looking at New York City, New York, itself, the state, because the average person does not make that kind of income, especially here in Carolina. I know I ain't making that kind of money. So let's just be very, very clear, everyone, that
Right.
we know the average person, but in New York alone, the average salary looks like what?
The average salary. Okay, so let's do the math. Um, the average
Boy, this is
salary.
where I used to have you do all the math when we were in school.
Well, let's do the math. The average monthly rent is 1956 in New York. That's
In New
that's
York?
yes.
For, like, a one-bedroom or a two-bedroom? Like, what is this giving you for that?
That's a one bedroom. The average rent is
Wow.
1956 per month,
Okay, right.
which is 23,000 per year. Now, if you're only making, let's just start with minimum wage. You're making
My
minimum
god.
wage. You make a minimum wage, which is $15, I want to say now in New York. That brings you out to roughly 31,000 per year that you're making. Your
You
your
still
rent is
can't eat, you still
23,000.
can't, yeah, you can't eat, you can barely get back and forth to work,
You
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 gotta
can't
still pay
you
lights.
you can't do anything because your lights is taking up the remainder of that.
Right.
And that's
You
just
need
one.
lights.
Need
Now,
you
so
need
in New York, how does the utilities go? Do you have your power bill, your gas? Is there gas? And, how does it go? I know in certain places it's different.
Yeah, it depends on where you reside. You have
Okay.
if you're in a private residence, you're going to be paying electricity and either gas or water. Not as much water in New York. That's more so like New Jersey, but
Okay.
you will be paying electricity and gas. Now you may get an all inclusive landlord who
Right.
you're always going to pay lights, but your gas might be included.
And let's be very, very transparent with everybody. We now understand that internet is essential. It's essential. So that is now part of gas, electric, water, you know, internet. Those are the things that you're gonna have to have when you're in housing, when you're living on your own. You can't go without it at this point. And we realized that during COVID, how many people were without essential internet access.
Absolutely,
So that's part of the bills now.
that's
We have
another
to
bill.
factor
That's
that in.
another
Yeah.
at least $200
My
unless
gosh.
you're on public assistance and you're able to gain access to the affordable internet plans that they have that are free. It's almost impossible off of that base salary. And that's just $15 minimum, per hour. There are a lot of jobs that are not even paying that. You have
Yeah,
some
so then
people
that
who are
brings me
paying
to
$12 an hour.
and that brings me to trying to understand how is it that the richest city in the world, and especially in this country, has a homelessness problem. I mean, bare minimum, your hourly rate should not be what it is in New York City in order to live there. You can't survive. I mean, this is why we have a situation where, and I hear a lot of comedians talk about it, especially one of my favorite comedians, Josh Johnson. He speaks about it all the time when he first came to New York, having to share room and board with multiple people where, he ended up what he considered was his room was like the hallway. And he was paying like $900 for the hallway. Like, how and why is this happening in the richest city in the world?
I would say inflation. The cost of living doesn't provide for you to be able to afford the housing. Let's think about it. Even a NYCHA apartment, which they consider the New York City Housing Authority, they they
Okay.
they for lack of better terms, they refer to them as the projects. A studio apartment in the NYCHA apartment is $1,130 per month. A studio
A studio?
in NYCHA. So
My
imagine
god.
a
And that's the
studio
program that actually helps with money
supposed
towards
to
it
assist
to
supposed
lower
to
it.
assist with low income housing. It's supposed to be a low income housing development. It's not the case anymore. It's all income based. And in the climate and the times that we are living in now, where we have a president that is now trying to minimize your length of stay, even in New York City housing authorities, the the
It's gonna be
underpowered are going
rampant.
to be the homelessness rate is going to increase.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
no
And
funding.
you're gonna get there's gonna be no stability because how can and I've said this before and because I'm currently writing a book that will explain what it feels like, what it looks like to be a child that was raised on the system, and I make that no secret. I am a child that was in the system, but my mother was able to educate herself and my family educated themselves, and it wasn't for us to stay on for generations. And I understand that some things just happen and it is what it is. But my family educated themselves and moved on. It was just a tool to help us. It was bridging gaps. So for someone like myself that we started out in Section 8 housing, you know, and then she moved out of Section 8 housing to start paying rents and things on her own because she received her education. Those programs are going to go away,
Correct.
or shorten, or they're going to shorten them. And I think they should. And people are going to say this is a little controversial when I say this. I do think they should be shortened, but in a way that helps people get to where they need to be. There's nothing there. The programs are not enough there to help people not depend on the system. You don't want us on the system, then give us the tools to stay off of the system. There's nothing
Correct.
in between. Unless you have the the force inside of yourself, like my family members did, to take yourself off the system. You're there then stuck depending on the system. And then it looks like you're using it, but you were never given the tools to get off of it. So I think that's happening with this
This is
administration.
correct.
They're trying to label people that are on the system, but not providing them what they need to be off the system. So that's where we're at right now.
The problem is there are not enough supportive systems in place to allow for somebody to kind of gain control back over their life. And so
Okay.
that's really why I work in the shelter system. I provide the tutelage for my clients to understand. If you get, let's say, a City FEPS voucher, which is a low, it's a subsidy voucher that they provide, similar to Section 8, which is another form. You get a City FEPS voucher, and it lasts for maybe anywhere from 2 to 5 years. You reside in the shelter for a year. HRA is paying for your stay in shelter. You get a low income job, you save every dollar. And then you move out. You get the City Feds voucher. They pay for sometimes full percent of the rent. You pay nothing. Guess what you're doing for those 2 to 5 years? You're saving your money. You're putting your
You
money in
should
the
be.
bank. So you should
Yeah,
be.
you should. You
Should be.
should be. Let's be clear.
Yes,
Again, this is what creates that generational dependency
correct.
because there's no help there. There's no financial guidance. There's no classes available on how to get out of the system once you're on it. And I speak about this to a lot of close friends of mine. People know that I worked in the system where I used to do housing checks and to make sure that the people that were being accommodated
We're being
housing were
accommodated.
were being accommodated and abiding by
Mm-hmm.
the rules, and a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
this led to generational families living across the street from one another, mothers and daughters, and on and on and on, but there was no break in between. There was no education, no extra help that these people can get, and it's not just people of color, let's be clear. We often think that a lot of times people that are displaced or on the system or using government assistance are just people of color. But what people don't discuss is that these programs were not originally designed for people of color. And we don't talk about that enough. These programs were brought about way before we even had any rights to it. I don't think people of color were even allowed to benefit from it until what, the 60s, I think? I
Correct.
think it was someplace there. Yeah. Yeah.
Correct.
So when people think that, "Oh, we've been on this forever," it wasn't even allowed. It wasn't offered to people of color until the 60s.
Yeah, that's a falsehood. That assumption. You have, I don't know the exact figures, but you have more Caucasian and Jewish individuals on public assistance than you have African American. Just because you see us in the public does not mean anything. What people don't understand is that the Jewish community have liaisons who they have one person per neighborhood who will go into the public assistance office and file and refile and apply for benefits for the entire neighborhood. One person. So you don't see an influx of Jewish people as opposed to us. We don't have a representative that's gonna
No.
do that for
No.
our community board.
No.
You got to go on your own. You got to take your kids
Well,
down
not
there.
not not only that of what you think you see when you're in the spaces, it's what you see that is projected onto the screens. You know, we have become the face of government
Correct.
assistance, and it is unfortunate that that narrative doesn't really fit who we are as a community of people. When all this is happening with homelessness, you really got to think who's going to benefit from this. If the system is inflated, as it is, it's not enough
Correct.
of the resources that we need. There's not enough housing being built at rates that can be afforded. So, and
Correct.
then people are not making the money that they need to not be in the housing. So who is going to benefit from this?
Sadly enough, nobody. It's like I said, it's going to lead to mass. The homelessness rate is going to increase because they're going to cut people off before they're ready to kind of fly with their own wings. The unemployment is increasing. They're making it way more harder to gain employment. So by the time your voucher runs out, or by the time they regenerate your voucher, you you're back to square one. That's
So
why.
let's
That's what
first
leads
back
to
up
the.
and
Mhm.
let's educate people when you say voucher. What is a voucher? I know what it is, but I want our listeners to understand what that is.
Okay, so a voucher is it's a low income subsidy that provides for emergency assistance for people who are within a certain income bracket. So
Mhm.
for example, you have Section 8, you have HPD, which is the what's the definition? The New York City Development of Housing Prevention Program. You
Mhm.
have City FEPS. City FEPS provides for people who are, again, under income. You have City FEPS A, who provides for individuals who are domestic violence survivors. You have City FEPS B for individuals who have become homeless as a result of being evicted. All of these voucher programs are offered
Oh,
to
uh-oh, we
low
got
income.
silence here. Hold on. There we go. Okay, I can hear you again. Sometimes
All
it
of
goes
these
in and out.
I got you. All of these voucher programs are offered to low income families, and it is all based on your income. So it regenerates every 6 months based off whatever dollar amount that you're bringing in. If you're
So
bringing
wait,
in
wait,
the
wait,
bare
wait.
minimum,
So so the voucher is only good for 6 months?
No, it regenerates every 6 months. Your voucher can be is good
Okay,
from
the finances, you're saying the
right,
funds that they put on the voucher regenerates every 6 months based on your
right,
income. Okay.
correct, and it can be anywhere. It can last anywhere from 1 to 5 years. It just depends on what voucher you have. Certain vouchers allow for you to get placement within the tri-boroughs. Some vouchers, like the Section 8, allows for you to go state to state. So it just depends on
I
what you
do know
qualify
about that
for.
state to state one, because I know a couple people that wanted to apply so that they can move around to different states. They may have better opportunities for them where they can further themselves and then get off of the assistance program.
Correct.
There's so many rules to get into these programs to begin with. So I don't want people to think they just sign up for it and they get it. You have to meet a certain criteria.
You have to, and it's sad to say, but you have to be pretty much pinching pennies in order to qualify for a voucher. You have to
Mm.
be. They have a term, it's called being over income. To be over income, remember I told you that the minimum wage rate in New York is $15 per hour. Um, to be over income, you can be making $3 more than that. If you're making $18 per hour in the city of New York, you will be over income for your voucher.
So then you're saying that these people can't do overtime because at the end of
No,
the
you
year,
cannot do overtime. Absolutely
my
not.
God,
So we tell people you don't work. We provide the guidance for our clients. Do not work a job more than 30 hours per week. And it's, how do you tell somebody that? Because how can you
right,
survive off of that? When they've
right,
already, they already do not offer you food stamps because you make a certain amount. They don't offer you cash
right.
assistance because you make a certain amount. Now you're gonna tell the person you can't work over $30, over 30, 30, over 30 hours per week
Because we can't get you housing because
because
then
we
you should
cannot
be able
get
to
you
do it on your.
housing.
So,
Correct.
okay, before we dive deeper into this, I have some other questions I want to ask you. How did you come about into this career path? Like, what made you come into this space? I know you
I
wanted
got
to
I,
serve your community, but how did this get there?
I got offered an opportunity to be an assistant director for a transitional housing program for formerly incarcerated men. I ran a building of 24, 25 men. Um, had to
Whew,
guide them through, yeah, had to guide them through being
mm,
released, had to guide them through obtaining their benefits, obtaining their vital documents, both birth certificate, social security card, identification cards, um, enrolling in their Medicaid program, obtaining health insurance. So that was my gateway into this realm. I've always worked in social services, but in a different capacity, working with group home children in the court
okay.
system. So on this aspect of it, that was my gateway. So,
So was it
work.
like I
Mhm.
guess my question, because I know people that are watching are gonna wanna go deeper. Was this something did you go to college and say, "I think I wanna do that"?
No, while in college, a young fellow looking for some type of work, group home advisors in the southern states is a big thing. It's more private housing, so they're more tailored for group home settings.
Mhm.
That's what led me into the nonprofit world. And you don't need a degree. You can have a high school diploma. You can intern. And that's actually how I started, was just interning. I interned for
Okay.
3 months and then was offered by a program director a permanent position. So I would work part time and I would go to school part time. You don't need a
That's
degree.
what I wanted people to know, that okay, I was trying to get you to give that to
Absolutely.
people so they can understand that this is something that anybody can do.
I started out as a one-on-one aide in the Richmond public school system, and so that
Mhm.
in itself was my gateway into group homes, just as transitional housing was my gateway into shelter. But yes, when you're working as a one-on-one aide in the public school system, you can be a high schooler in a senior in high school and be a one-on-one aide in the public school system, because an aide is just an aide to the teacher, and you are given, like I said, let's say a one-on-one with one client or one child, not a group of them. So it's easy for you to kind of learn the field. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do you think that the system is disproportionate to men and women? Like, do you see more help being given to women than it is to men? Now that you've gone through this for years now, because college was then, and then and now we're here where we are. That's almost 20 years. So, have you seen it along your journey that people don't recognize how it affects men just like it affects women?
Oh, absolutely they don't. There's a misconception. I have several single fathers here in the shelter. And when you think about single parenting, you don't think about the father. Everybody
No, you
automatically
don't.
thinks about
We all
the
automatically think
mother.
about the mother.
And then if the first thing they ask the mother is where's the father, they don't ask the father where's the mother.
Where's the mother? Isn't that something that takes us off a little bit, but isn't that odd that we don't talk enough about the fact that there are single fathers, parents that are fathers out here that take care of their children, not just women. I mean, there are women that are on child, support as well.
Absolutely. And just like there are fathers who have their child's mother on child support as well. It goes both ways, but people is a stigma. People don't, you see a guy, you don't really, it's not ideal for you to see a guy with three kids. To see a
Right,
guy struggling in the system with three children, to see a father fighting to gain full custody of his child because the mother is trying to use the child as a scapegoat towards the father. There are a lot of scenarios that rear their head in terms of the misconception or the support that is given to mothers as opposed to fathers. There is a huge misconception. Now, do the numbers not support single mothers? Absolutely. There are more single mothers than there are single fathers. We're not going to
yeah.
refute that. But the need is still present for single fathers.
Mm.
Unfortunately, single fathers we can't get pregnancy support. There's several agencies that will provide that support that will go above and beyond to add, or provide additive services for a mother as opposed to a father. A
Right,
father, you just got to figure out childcare and go get to work. A mother,
that's
there are a lot more
crazy.
supportive practices and agencies in place to provide that. So, we can't get WIC, this single father can't get WIC.
I didn't know
And that's
that.
just
I didn't now see, that's odd to me that you can't get WIC because it provides food for the child.
yeah,
You know what I
no,
mean? Like, that's weird.
no.
Well, I mean, you are definitely educating people on a lot of the things that go on behind the scenes in our assistant programs in our states. So, I wanna go a little bit shift, more into how this, it's just not spoken about how the policies that are put in place affect people in housing. So we just had a major win, which we talked about before in politics in New York, where Mandani is now your mayor after Adams was pushed out and Cuomo was a no for everybody.
Mhm.
And what does that look like for a state like New York for the
He's
housing
more
community?
engaged. He's looking to the big difference with him being appointed is he is not a stand on the side yes person. He's not a I'm
Gotcha.
just going to go by, whatever the direction of the president is. He's going to When you talk about housing, that is solely a responsibility for the mayor to control. In previous
Mm,
administrations, they would allow the president or the governor to kind of dictate what direction the programs will go in, dictate and determine what funding would be applied for or what funding would be extended. They would allow for that to happen externally when that should never be the case. That's the sole responsibility of the mayor to appoint the
mhm,
housing commissioner. That's the mayor's, he oversees the housing commissioner. So that's one of
okay.
the biggest differences. He's already coming into office with the direction of trying to extend certain services, trying to provide more affordabilities for low income residents, neighborhoods. Yeah, he's a lot more engaged.
Do you think that he's gonna have any problems with being able to get the funds that he needs for the for the state?
He will, because in the end, with the administration that we have now, it's a dictatorship. So if you don't, or again, for lack of better terms, if you don't shape up and fall in line, the President Trump is cutting funding for any state.
Wow, wow.
And that's
So,
above his authority.
but I think what a lot of people also misunderstand is how it works. So, Mandani has amazing ideas for the people of his state, but they have to get approved. So it doesn't stop with him. So, if things don't happen the way that it happens, I would encourage people, don't fault him for it. It has to go up through a chain. So it would go next to the governor in your state to be able to
It goes
sign
to the
off on
governor.
these rules. Yeah,
Yeah,
she has
it
to
goes
sign
to the
off.
governor.
Yeah.
It
And
starts with
then,
with the local councilman. Your local councilman. What people fail to realize is, it's just like when you go out to vote. Everybody thinks that voting is just for the president. No, you need to vote. You need to vote for
you
your
need to start
councilman.
it. And
You
yes,
got to start on
I
the
spoke
ground
about that.
level. You petition for what you need for your neighborhood, for your councilman. Your councilman will then take it up to the assemblyman. The assemblyman will then take it to the mayor, and the mayor will then take it up to the governor. There's always a ladder. There's always a chain. It doesn't start and stop with the
Well,
mayor.
here's a question. When you're displaced and you're in housing and you need help, how does that affect your abilities to be able to vote? Because you don't have your license or your ID will not have the current address. It won't match. So this law that they're trying to pass right now, that your ID and everything has to match, or you have to bring ID to be verified to be able to vote, it will completely get pretty much all of the people that are displaced around the country. That is their votes could be thrown out because they don't have addresses that match.
The problem, so, and that's why we push for people to get off the streets and enter the shelter system. So when you enter the shelter system, the moment you get placed at a residence, the first thing that they give you is a residency letter. On day two, you meet with an intake worker, or a case manager, or some type of social service staff member that will prompt you to change your ID. You take that residency letter to the DMV. You change the address that's on your ID to match where you reside at. Here in New York, we have a IDNYC program where you don't have to go to the DMV. You can apply for a free identification card. You would then take that
Wow.
residency letter and you would apply for the IDNYC card. So now your ID is matching where you reside at. There's ways to go around it, but
I hope our listeners and watchers really, 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 really pay close attention to what you just said, because that is a changer to, I don't know what other cities and states offer,
Mhm.
but they need to look into the programs to see what is available, because just because you're displaced or dishoused doesn't mean that your vote and your voice is not worth counting. And we're in a space right now that your vote is going to be threatened, and you have that right. That is not taken away from you just because you're experiencing life. It happens.
Absolutely.
So what you just said is very, very, very vital, especially for midterms that are coming up right now.
This is why people we implore people to get off the street. You can be homeless, but you don't have to be street homeless. You could be in a shelter and be homeless. Street homeless means you're pretty much, the way that they're shaping everything up, exactly what you said. You will not have the right to. You will have the right, but you can't vote because you have no identification. You have no proper
You have no
identification.
identification.
So if you
And
enroll
and
in
uh,
a
and
shelter,
places
you will get
like
that.
in places like California, and even what I see here in Carolina right now, the street homeless, which again, I you are teaching me tons, because to me, I
Mhm.
thought when you're homeless, you're just homeless. But the street homeless, they don't have anything, no place, no way to identify where they are. So how would they vote? I mean, some of them have the frame of mind to want to still vote, but they
Mhm.
can't, and they don't know if they can. So they would have to check into a shelter to be able to do these things.
Which also,
It's
we tell
it
we try
amazes me
to
that we go ahead. Go ahead.
we try to educate people that just because you're being in a shelter provides a lot of different perks as well. It gives you stability. It gets a roof over your head. It gets you, for some facilities that provide meals, it gets you meals. It gets you the supportive, what we call, like, you can go into like supportive housing, which is another fraction of shelter. but it gives you that extra support to where you are given the tutelage, you are given the tools and the guidance to go to a HRA office, to apply for food stamps, to apply for cash assistance. The typical person who's street homeless does not have income. Therefore, you will automatically be eligible for food stamps and cash assistance. So now you can feed
Huh?
yourself and you can put, you can travel, you can, buy, you're only getting you know,
A
about
sniping, a little something. Yeah,
$185, right?
yeah, yeah.
It's
But
more
it gives you
than
some
nothing.
dignity.
R
Yeah, it gives you some dignity. Maybe you might want to take and go to a hotel and shower and sleep good for
Correct.
when it's cold or hot outside. So it gives you your dignity back. So, or get yourself ready for an interview that's up and coming. So many
Correct.
things that those funds can be utilized for. It's just this has been very, very, very interesting conversation, which I knew it would be, but I'm quite sure people are going to have so many other questions. What do you think people, their biggest misunderstanding about the process is?
Well, there's several. You get people that say things like, "Oh, well, the system is flawed. It's rigged to set you up to fail, or the system is only for they provide more assistance for the immigrants than they do the people who are
Now,
native
see,
native people."
now you bringing up something that I know it will hit a lot of New Yorkers, especially some people that I know that find a problem with the amount of immigration that is happening, or that has happened in New York, that they feel that the benefits are being taken away from them, and you're saying that is not the case.
No, that's false. That's a falsehood. In fact, the immigrants have to go through more of a red tape to obtain benefits. You cannot become a product of the system. You cannot get food stamps. You cannot obtain a voucher while being undocumented, which means you have to apply for your what do they call your work authorization social security card. That's a process. It takes
And
almost a
so
year.
And so people need to understand, if you're here illegally, why would you go into a place where they have to document who you are to take benefits from a state or city that you're in if you don't want to be caught because you're here? You make it make sense. You know what I'm saying? Like it
Yeah.
makes no logical sense. If I'm illegal, why would I then go get myself an ID to get benefits so that now they can track me being here illegally?
So
That
that's
makes
why
no sense.
that's when the education comes in at because while you're here illegally, you're applying for your work authorization, you're applying for your visa, you're applying for the things that would make you a U.S. citizen, as opposed to
That then would
just
make you eligible to receive benefit. Now, see, because from my understanding, is certain. Well, we know that they can't receive certain benefits whether they're working and putting into the system because they're not from this country. So, there's certain things that they are not afforded to get. They can't get, Social Security and different things like that. But they can get benefits and help while they're here if
yeah,
they go through the right process.
if they go through the right process. And so that's what a lot of people, once Donald Trump took office, were actually leaving. They were leaving the shelter system out of fear of being deported. But that they were doing that prematurely. If you took the time to process the applications the right way, by the time any of his policies were put in place and be implemented, you already started your application process for gaining legal citizenship here. So there's no need for you to flee. But then he did what he did.
But I have to push back on that because even if you're here legally, even if you're a citizen, you're getting sent to other countries that you've never been to before just because of what you look like or what you sound like.
Yeah,
So I
wrongfully
can
so.
understand their fear. They have
Yeah,
fear
it's a
justifiably
it's a
because we
legitimate
don't
fear.
know.
No, it's a
Yeah.
legitimate fear. But there's ways to go around. There's ways for them for the non-citizen person to still gain assistance. And again, it's a lot of misconceptions.
No.
Yeah, it's
I
a lot of
it's this
misconceptions.
conversation, yeah, we can go on and on and on, and I thank you so much for coming to Wine, Wealth, and Tea podcast, for having a conversation with me about housing. Is anything else you want people to know? Because I don't want to hold you too much longer. I want you to be able to enjoy your day without all of the snow that keeps coming your way.
It's finally stopped. The biggest thing I want people to know is don't be fearful of the process. The process is the process, but it's not any it's not any smoother. I mean, it's not any harder than any other process would be. It's the same as if you were trying to apply for your own apartment as a working class person. It takes months. It takes time. Here in the city of New York, it takes at least $5,000 in savings in order for you to get an apartment. Nobody's sitting around with $5,000 in a piggy bank. So the process, although it is a process, it's worth it. You know, it takes you up to 3 months to gain your voucher. It takes you up to 3 months to try to find some type of legit housing, and then another 3 months to finish the process. That's the typical process for anybody who's moving from apartment to apartment.
Did have one more question.
Mhm.
The typical shelter can hold how many people at a time in a city like New York?
It depends on the size. It depends on the size and
Okay.
the modality of it. So, like for example, the shelter that I'm currently employed at is one of the biggest in the borough. We house up to
Okay.
250 families. That's families. So, you know,
Families.
the typical household has anywhere from two individuals to max four individuals. So you multiply that times
Mhm.
250, that's how much we can house. Now you have some single, this is a
Okay.
family shelter. You have single shelters, single men shelters, single women shelters, you have supportive housing. Those are smaller modalities that are probably hold anywhere from 75 to 100 families. But then again, it all depends on the setting because you have hotel style shelters, which is like what I am employed in. But then you have like what you call like a tier two, which is more like an apartment style setting. So you have a kitchen, you have a microwave, you have a refrigerator. You will have a roommate. So it's one person
Oh,
on one side of the
wow.
room, another person on the other side of the room. Those are more so for individuals, not families. So it really just depends on the modality that you're working in that I can answer to what the typical size is. It depends on the shelter itself.
Oh, man. I mean, you really have just given a lot of information today on, all things that have to do with housing. And I think that our watchers and listeners are going to really, really enjoy this informational session on what it looks like and how to understand the different levels of people that are displaced or homeless. And I hope that they reach out to the right people to help them navigate the system because you seem like you are the right person to help people in New York City.
When you work in this field for, I think I've been working in shelter for maybe like 8 years now, 7 years now. You kind of learn how to navigate some things.
Yeah, yeah, I see, I see. Well, Mr. Weathers, I thank you again for coming to Wine, Wealth, and Tea magazine, and I mean, I said the magazine, which I'm gonna bring that up in a minute, but to our
Mhm.
podcast. See, I got so many things going on with the Wine, Wealth, and Tea. Sometimes they cross over, but to the podcast to have a live conversation, and it's possible that we can have a magazine conversation at some point. I'm gonna encourage the listeners to go ahead and put down questions in the comments and different things. And we possibly can do this again and get back to them. Would you be interested in coming back
Absolutely.
to the podcast?
I
Okay.
would
Okay.
very much be interested in educating the folks. And thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, my dear friend, for coming on again. I'm going to let you go while I talk to everybody about the magazine and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you. You enjoy the rest of your day, young lady.
You too. I'll talk to you
Thanks.
soon.
Alrighty. Bye bye.
Bye. Okay, guys. I hope you really, 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 really enjoyed that amazing informational segment that we had. That conversation, I think, will give people a better idea of how the housing in the displaced community works. Make sure that you register yourself to vote because we need people that are on the majority of the people in this country's side and helping them get ahead. I do want to say thank you to everybody that supported me over the last couple of weeks. Like I said, have been in the process of creating a Wine Wealth Team magazine, and that magazine is out right now. So I want to go ahead quickly and share with you guys where you can find the magazine. Um, it is here on the landing page. chrissydose.com, KMF, where you'll be able to see everything that is linked to me, where you'll be able to watch the podcast. You'll be able to listen and watch it on Spotify. So you get YouTube, you get Spotify. You'll be able to start purchasing merch soon. We're still working out some glitches, but if you want to just go straight for the wine, you can. And then you'll be able to experience this new tab that just came to life over the weekend, which is the magazine. There we have it. So you'll be able to go there. And this is an interactive magazine. You can get to hear, you see down here, you click this and you listen. I don't know if you guys can hear that. It makes a paper sound, right? So, and then you have ways that the links in the magazine are very interactive. I'm going to find a page that has a link for you guys. So, once you get to, and this is all the beautiful things, you get to a page where there is a link, you can hover over it and it will take you directly to the person's information and so much more. So I am just very, very, very excited about the magazine. Um, I love the flipping sound. We're still working on a couple other things, but we have 11 more of these to bring to you and publish. And I hope that you enjoy it. So you make sure that you go to um, the website and actually subscribe. And once you subscribe, then you'll be able to, let's see here. Yeah. You'll be able to know when new things come about with the magazine, with the podcast, and so much more. I plan on writing even more as the months go on. I hope that you enjoyed, again, the whole conversation that we just had. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and comment. And that's all I got to say. So I just hope that you guys enjoyed the conversation. Until another time, make sure that you love on one another and treat one another right, because we live in a time right now where it's just not in the people that are leading us to treat people right. But you can lead your own space by treating people right. And take time to take a sip. Bye.